Hey y'all, what's happening? How y'all doing? So I was watching an interview of Zoe Saldana, the Latinx actress, and she was talking about coming into a place where she would embrace her distinct cultural identity, specifically connected to being from West African heritage as a Latinx, and finally embracing it and not being, I guess she came from she had an environment, I guess, growing up where some of the people she encountered rejected um, being of West African descent. And so I thought, let me share my experience. I remember, I just told my mother recently that I didn't take Afro American studies or African American literature when I was in high school because I didn't find any value in it. And I didn't find any value in it because as a 13-year old, 11, but I think 11 to 13, 14, I was reading nothing but romance novels. Um, and so if you look at my films, you'll see why. I just love romance and love and all that jazz. And so I watched black movies as a child, movies that express the slices of the black experience, and I loved them. So I loved storytelling that included slices of the black American life, of the black life. But for some reason, as it related to literature, I hadn't been exposed or I hadn't sought out a book, a novel or nonfiction book that expressed slice of the black American life or any black life of the African diaspora. So I didn't seek it out, and it wasn't, no books were given to me as gifts or suggested. I don't recall. I'll say that. I don't recall. So yeah, when I got to high school and I had the option of, I remember some of my friends or classmates in my division class taking black literature classes. I used to think to myself, why are they taking that class? It's really sad because I'm very pro culture, American black culture. I appreciate the African diaspora experiences of what I've read from Sierra Leone and South Africa. But it's really sad that between 14 and 17 years old or 18, whatever, I stayed away from that black literature. Um, I didn't become, I wasn't really introduced to it, or it didn't become like a thing, or I didn't gravitate to it until I was 21 years old, when a friend of mine, Felicia, was reading Waiting to Exhale by Terry McMillan, and she was going on and on about how wonderful this novel was. And so, no, let me go back. I'm sorry, because when I went to Columbia College Chicago, Performing Arts College, and I was majoring in television. I remember in college, my freshman year of college at Columbia College Chicago, I took history of I think African American history, or something like that, and we explored slavery, enslavement in this country, and I remember getting a B in a class, and that was, I'm gonna keep it really 100. That was the first time I ever got a B. I remember getting some A's too on some assignments, reports. I never really excelled in history, never. And I found it, I guess I didn't really explore it, but at the time, or looking back, I'm like, why did I excel in black history? I excelled in black history because I guess I was learning about people who were from my experience. were from my cultural and historical experience, lineage experience. And I excelled in it. And I'm like, I'm excelling in history? Me? Because I was always just passing in C's. Sometimes I even get D's because I would just, I mean, I didn't realize it, but I'm guessing looking back, it didn't connect with me in any way. Not reading about any of people who look like me, who had my experience, my family's experience. Yes, I read about Harriet Tubman, of course. But I don't know. So, but yeah, I excelled in my African American history class. I remember taking the history of African American theater in college as well. I excelled in that. It's and this is not to say that people who are non-Black American cannot excel in reading about African American Black history, which is American history, because everybody I think who comes to this country should read about American Black history and the invaluable economic and social and artistic and scientific and every contribution we have made to make this country what it is. Everybody who comes here, every immigrant who comes here should learn about our American Black history, which is American histories and our contributions in every field, right? And specifically economically. But I myself, I didn't find it value in it, and it's really sad. As a young person, I didn't find value in it, and but moving forward to when I was 21, then I became, I'm sorry. So once my financial aid fell through for the following year, and I was trying every means I could to get money and get loans, and it just didn't fall. It didn't pan out, or I didn't take the proper steps or whatever. So I decided to self-educate. I stopped pursuing college, and I chose to self-educate myself. And I gravitated toward reading about, I think the first book I read was New Negro by Elaine Locke, exploring the Harlem Renaissance community, authors, which included Zora Neale Hurston and Countee Cullen and countless others I can't recall. And then I was excited. I was 20 at this time. And then I began reading Carrefour Boy, about the South African apartheid, and it would follow the journey of this one individual. And then I just start reading From Slavery to Freedom, then I was just reading. Everything I was reading was fiction and nonfiction. It was about, mostly nonfiction. It was just about the American Black experience in this country. And then, like I said, I trod off to South Africa, and next thing I know, I was sorry for being all over the place, but I was excited. I would share every time I learned something about our culture and our contributions in this country. I would just get excited and share with my mother. I know I was annoying her because every little, Mom, did you know this? Oh my God, did you know this? Mom, did you know we did this? Did you know we did that? Did you know this happened? I was just like, I was enamored with our countless contributions in every field: science, business, art, inventions, everything, literature, everything. So that was a reawakening of my cultural pride, right? And knowing that if they can do certain things that I can do, I have it within me as well. And then Spike Lee came on the motherfucking scene, and he leveled up my cultural pride and American Black experience through School Days. I remember watching School Days and literally crying because I saw the song, the song where if you've seen it, your hair ain't no longer than that, so you never fling it all back. And she's like, there was a lyric, she said, don't you ever worry about that, cause I don't mind being black. Oh my God. Let me tell you something. I cried. I cried like a baby because my hair was, as a child, I didn't have long hair, and I already talked about this in another video. But to see a woman with short, natural hair talking about, I don't mind being black, and oh my God, it changed my perspective. It made me embrace, because I had already embraced, like, yeah, so I saw that in 1989, so it was prior to me reading about our history and our cultures and stuff like that. But it was like the seed was planted, and embracing my my black aesthetic, and so shout out to Spike Lee for including that in in that narrative. But there was a cultural pride and an aesthetic pride that welled up in me when that actress sang that lyric, and seeing the love interest of Lawrence Fishburne being a dark skinned woman with short natural hair and looking very feminine and beautiful and intelligent, and it just changed my perspective for in a good way. But then, sorry, fast forwarding to when I was 21 years old, my friend Felicia introduced me to Terry McMillan, and so once she introduced Terry McMillan, and I had already read The New Negro by then, and From Slavery to Freedom, and Catholic Boy, and a whole nine. I was reading just history, and then she introduced me to to fiction writing of American Black authors, and then I read every well, at least I read Waiting to Exhale, of course, first, and then Disappearing Acts, and then Mama, and I think those are the only three books I read. I think, yeah, I think. And then I read B.B. Moore Campbell's Brothers and Sisters, and then I read Sisters and Lovers by, I forget her name, I'm sorry. But I was just reading nothing but nonfiction novels by American Black authors. And so again, they kept pouring, these novels kept pouring into my American Black cultural pride, right? And I'm sure those nonfiction authors have influenced my writing, as Spike Lee's filmmaking has influenced my filmmaking. But all those, so from reading, reading those history books after getting out of college, or after not being able to resume college, my second year of college, I did 2 years of college. So that third year, when I would have gone back to college, I just started self-educating myself. So really starting there, where with Spike Lee, She's Gotta Have It. I'm sorry, school days, to then reading those history books about our culture, and then introduced to Terry McMillan and the other black authors. And then in my early 30s, I read Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, and I remember laughing and crying at the same time, and being completely transported, and being in awe of her writing skills, just in awe. And all those things, the movies, the history books, the nonfiction books, and then finally, I'm sorry, I skipped over. Before Toni Morrison, Spike Lee, when I heard that Spike Lee, or saw in interviews that Spike Lee was going to do the autobiography of Malcolm X, then I was like, well, I don't want to go to the movies and be ignorant about Malcolm X, because I hadn't been exposed to Malcolm X in my learning. I hadn't even heard of Malcolm X, sadly. Of course, I heard of Dr. King, but not Malcolm X. And the more Spike Lee talked about him, the more intrigued I became about his journey, Malcolm X's life. And I said, I'm going to read his book because I want to be informed before I go to the movies. And I fell head over heels from Malcolm's journey, and I grew this admiration and respect for his journey. And he, of course, stressed how we as American Black people should embrace our features and our hair texture, and who we are as a people, as a collective of people, and what we've accomplished, and how we've endured and we've been resilient. And so Malcolm X was the stamp of my cultural pride. His journey led to my really strong hold of cultural, American black cultural pride. And then reading about Kaffir Boy made me connect with South Africans who were experiencing oppression under colonial apartheid. So I did not, however, read about West Indian experience through narratives, through fiction novels or historical, and I did not read about West Africans either through whether it be fiction or nonfiction. I became a little bit more interested and curious about the West African and the West Indian black culture history once I moved to New York, because I've been exposed or been interacting with more black West Indians in New York than I ever did in Chicago. In Chicago, I met one Jamaican cat. No, that was a Belizean cat that I was dating. We didn't really date. We just liked each other when I was 17, something like that. Outside of those two individuals in Chicago, I hadn't really interacted with anybody who was black West Indian, at least to my knowledge. I'm sorry, no. Actually, my cousin's best friend family were from Belize. They were first generation Americans, but they didn't talk about their West Indian culture in any way, not around me. So I just looked at them as American black. But yeah, so that's a long-winded way of me saying I clearly have changed. I clearly totally value our literature, our authors, our history, our contributions. You already know that through my videos. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to share, that not all black people have issues with celebrating their culture as black people, but I know I did at points in my life. But that's no longer the case. It hasn't been the case for at least 20 years. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. And yeah, so Zoe Saldana interview sparked this because I forgot that I was not always embracing and celebrating my American black culture and all that entails in our history. So anyway, peace, Chinese.